I'm going to tell you absolutely everything about my Lingoda Sprint challenge experience so that you feel more informed about whether or not you should sign up to the challenge yourself, and I'll also share all my tips with you and how I, on multiple occasions, could have actually failed the sprint and what do I actually think. One of my goals this year was to recommence learning French, and the flexibility and 24/7 availability to learn online with Lingoda intrigued me because prior to this, I had been learning at my local Alliance Francaise. I found the pacing a little bit too slow for my liking. You don't really get too much freedom with what you actually get to learn. Starting from ultimate beginner to upper intermediate level, you can see all of the slides and you can book any class that you want. You can jump from level to level and you have all the control and flexibility as much as you want. This is exactly what I needed because I already had in mind what I wanted and needed to learn. Learning all this in person at an Alliance Francaise would have taken several semesters, but with Lingoda, it could be possible to do this all during just the sprint. I did the Lingoda Sprint, which meant I had to do 15 classes per month for 2 months. If you do pass the sprint, you can get either cash back or you can get some free class credits. And this was more of a bonus for me. I don't suggest signing up to the sprint if you are actually depending on getting the cash back because the rules are very, very strict. If you have to get rushed to the hospital or if you have a power outage and you have no way to connect to the class, they do not care. You will be disqualified. Before you sign up, read all the terms and conditions, ensure you will be able to meet all of them, and check the dates of the sprint. This nearly caught me out, which I'll talk about later. I've done a whole separate video about how the Lingoda platform itself actually works, how you book classes, etc. So definitely watch that next to get a feel for the platform in preparation. When you do sign up, you can take a placement test, which is supposed to tell you your level. It is purely, however, a comprehension test. There is no speaking component, no listening component, no writing tests. So I actually did too well on the test and it placed me in level B 2.3, which is way too high for someone who can't remember the conditional, doesn't know the subjunctive, and even gets mixed up with the imperfect tenses. So I had to completely ignore my score and try to do a self-evaluation by going through the different various slides for the classes available in the system. So I think the placement test could definitely do with some work. Looking through some of the A2 classes, I quickly found some topics which interested me, plus they were starting to introduce to me the grammar points that I was lacking. I also had a look through some of the B1 slides and some of them did scare me because this seemed like a very big jump at the time, but some did also look manageable. I figured that I was maybe an upper A2 to beginner A1. That's just to give you an idea of my starting point before the sprint. The first class I booked was the orientation class for B1.1. They do various orientation classes and I highly recommend them at different levels because it is a really nice welcome into the platform and the structure of the lessons. Because you have access to all slides, you can review the content in advance, which I did on many lessons to prevent myself from feeling anxious. This is also very helpful with learning because with repetition, it becomes easier to drill that into your brain. When the actual class is ready, 5 minutes before, a Zoom link will become available. Normally what happens is you introduce yourself, say where you live and why you're learning French, and then get started with the lesson content. I always like to have my camera on just because I do like that face-to-face feel and I liked seeing who else was in the same class, but this isn't mandatory, so don't let that scare you off. You will need to have your audio on and be able to view the slides and participate and interact. If you only have a mobile phone, this will still be okay because you can still join Zoom on your phone as long as you're able to see the slides, but I think a laptop will be best. The teacher shares their screen and follows through the slide deck going through the activities that Lingoda has prepared. The teachers do vary quite a lot, and I rarely actually saw teachers more than once. It is both a pro and a con. It's awesome to be able to meet so many different native teachers from all over the world, but if a teacher you don't like maybe so much has been assigned to your class, you can't exactly just cancel it if you don't like that teacher. So you don't know if you're going to like a teacher until the class actually begins. It is possible to book classes from teachers that you like, but there's limitations with it. You can click on the teacher, go to their profile, and at the bottom see their upcoming classes for your level. This means that in your profile, if you have said that your level is B1.1, for example, it's only going to show you classes for that teacher in that level. This is a little bit annoying because if you're a bit like how I took the sprint, which was going between levels based off what I wanted to learn and what I thought I could manage, if I wanted to push myself or if I wanted to review some basics, but if you want to do this, you're going to have to go to your profile, change your level, level every single time and then refresh the classes to see the different classes that the teachers are going to have upcoming in that level. The overwhelming majority of teachers that I had were amazing, truly. But there were just a couple that were not so good. One teacher I had literally just read the slides, which was super boring, and it made me feel like I could have just done it myself because they didn't really add much value. No helpful commentary was added to the content, which is something that a good teacher does. Goes back and forth with you. If you say something, they might ask you a follow-up question, and I really loved those kind of teachers. There were also other teachers who sometimes gave their own commentary too much, would fixate on one certain thing for 10 minutes, whilst the rest of us were kind of just not talking very much. And then sometimes we might fixate on some of the real basic slides too much, and then not get a chance to get to the end slides, which was sometimes compiling everything from the lesson all together, because the speed of the lesson depends on the teacher again, and also how many people are actually in the class. But really, the majority of teachers are amazing, and the majority of my classes have been really good, and I do think of those more than the actual negative ones. If you book a class more than 7 days before, you can book any class you want from any level, from any course, anything, any time slot, and then a teacher will be assigned to that class. But if you book your classes within 7 days, you can only book classes that somebody else has already booked. I suggest booking your own classes more than 7 days, because if nobody else actually ends up joining that class, you may actually get a private group lesson. It's just you and the teacher in the group lesson. This happened for me for 6 classes out of the 30. The classes depend on the other students, so most of them had about 3 people in them, which typically went really well. However, in classes with 4 to 5 people, it really depended on how well the teacher managed the class and got every person talking. There were some teachers who still managed this really well. If they let the students talk, sometimes if the teacher talked too much, I didn't feel like I was having as much fun. It didn't feel like I was getting my money's worth. I also rarely saw the same students multiple times. Overall, the classes are incredible and very valuable. The content by Lingoda is well designed, it's practical, and the questions to prompt the discussions and ask you to practice your speaking are very interesting, and they make you want to speak, share your own experiences, and engage with the lesson. I'm also just going to say something about how effective the content was. I was dreading to learn the subjunctive because everyone goes on about how difficult and how scary the subjunctive is, but the content in Lingoda made it easy, and I'm being dead serious here. The way the slides described how to use it and how to form it made it immediately workable, and with the practice exercises that were also in the slides, it made it easy to just immediately start using the subjunctive. I even learnt so much more grammar than I expected that I would learn before I started the sprint. The slides also have additional practice in them, and after the classes you can rate your class teacher and the content. The one downside, you can't contact the teachers after the lesson if you have a specific question about your lesson. There is no way to get in contact with them. So now I'm going to talk about my progress through the sprint. So gradually, as the sprint went on over the course of the 2 months, I noticed that it was becoming a lot easier to actually use the grammar points that I had learnt at the start. And also based off my comfort levels and the speed and ease of talking within certain classes, I could tell that I must have been making some sort of progress because it just felt easier and I felt so much more confident in myself. Slowly, I started enrolling in more higher classes. Ultimately, I started taking classes in A2.2, but actually ended the sprint taking a class in B1.3, and now I'm booking classes in B2.1. I feel really proud of myself, and I'm amazed, honestly, at how rapidly and how much my French has improved. I was also doing additional French practice and study. Sometimes I would put the vocabulary I learnt into Anki. I would use Lingoda's own practice dashboard. I was reading some books in French, watching YouTube videos, films, and TV series. But I feel like this, coupled with the Lingoda Sprint and the actual focused learning, really made French learning a perfect match for me. Because I was too busy with the Lingoda Sprint, particularly in the second month, I hadn't booked a conversation class with my italki tutor, because I've been using italki to have conversations in French before I was doing the Lingoda Sprint. It had basically been a whole month since I had spoken with her. She did remark that my French had greatly improved, that I was speaking with more fluidity, and that I was using more complex structures. She also barely had to correct me. So that was proof from a real French native that the sprint really, really works and that I greatly approve. Now, did I follow all of the sprint rules? On one occasion, I nearly missed my class. I thought that I had booked my class for 7 p.m., but I had actually booked it for 6 p.m. and I hadn't set an alert in my calendar. It was only by coincidence that I opened up my lesson 4 minutes past 6 p.m. with the intention to edit a video. Instead, I was like, oh no, actually, I'll review the content for Lingoda. I opened up Lingoda and found my class is in session right now. I immediately joined. Luckily, my attendance was still counted. Typically, I was joining the classes 5 minutes early because I wanted that extra speaking practice if the teacher did actually join early, but also just to ensure that I was ready, I was there, everything was working, it was all good. One other thing that could have easily tripped me up is that I actually got the sprint dates wrong. So the first month of the sprint started on a Monday. I assumed that the second month of the sprint would also start on a Monday. I also got my credits for the second month on a Monday. So I booked a class for the Tuesday. And then I reread the sprint rules to check, and I saw that the second month actually started on the Wednesday. So technically I was booking 16 classes in the first month. However, because I had booked this class more than 7 days away, I was able to immediately cancel it, and then I was able to use that credit for the Wednesday. I wasn't actually sure at the time if this would disqualify me from the sprint, but it actually didn't, probably because I was able to cancel it in time, thankfully. Did I succeed with the sprint? Yes, I did. I received an email about 2 weeks after the end of the sprint to advise that I'd been successful. Yay! By default, I would be paid 50% cash back. But by filling out a form, I could change my prize to receive 50 group credits instead. I wanted to invest back into my learning anyway, so I opted for the credits. And I'm very, very excited to keep using this platform because my French is honestly just improving a lot. Finally, to give you my tips for getting the most out of Lingoda and out of your Lingoda Sprint, this is what I recommend. Book your classes 7 days in advance or greater, because this ensures you get to focus on the topics that you want to learn and also gives you the chance to have a private group lesson if nobody else joins the class. Set an alarm for every single class for your sprint. Join all your classes slightly early and just check that your audio and your camera, if you're using your camera, work. Have your phone available in the instance that your computer breaks or you have a power outage, and you can switch over to using your mobile phone data just as a backup option. Reread the sprint rules 1 week before the second month to refresh yourself on every single rule because they'll probably get a bit rusty, and also check when that second month begins so you don't do what I nearly did and book too many classes in the first month. I recommend you review all the class material before the lesson to prime yourself with the questions and the vocabulary and help the content actually stick better. Finally, don't be afraid. If you're worried about making mistakes or making a fool out of yourself or not being good enough, I really wouldn't worry about that. In the classes, there are people of varying levels. I thought it was awesome to see so many different French learners at different levels. Even if you are still really, really worried about it, know that the chances of seeing the same people in the class are actually very, very low, because I rarely see the people that I've seen in previous classes in future classes. So if you're ready to sign up for the Lingoda Sprint, I do have an affiliate link down in the description below to further prepare yourself for your own Lingoda Sprint. Go and watch my Lingoda demo video. I really hope this video has been valuable. If it has been, please give this video a like, and all the best with your language learning journey.